Okay, so we are all familiar, if you've watched my channel and some other channels, we're all familiar with the inside here of the Hubsan Zino. So now we have the Zino Pro, and we're going to finally do the take apart and just do a comparison. So excuse the pieces of tape. I just have those because I have the camera overhead and that's kind of my shot area. So I just want to make sure that I stay within. So let's go ahead and move this out of the way and bring this into the picture. And there's really, sorry about that, there's really no need to talk about the controllers. Inside there's going to be some little difference with Wi-Fi versus the lease. But there's really no other differences between these two controllers. Nothing that we need to open it up and take a look at. Still same type of grade controller, nothing fancy there. So let's go ahead and open it up. And first, and I'll fast forward a lot of this, but first thing we do here is open up the tape. And this is something, when available, you want to buy and just keep on hand, because the time comes that you have to unpeel it once or twice. It just never goes back after you've done it a few times. And hopefully you won't ever have to, but if you do have to do it a few times, it doesn't go back. I'm peeling it off. Because what they've done now is they've gone and used a vinyl tears. So that's one difference right there. Now we have vinyl and a plastic coating over top. So you got to get underneath that plastic coating, not the tape itself. Here we go. There. So now it's a clear plastic with vinyl over it, which is nice. That'll go back better, but this one won't. So you definitely want to order some of that, because this one is no good anymore. All right, so now we've got these caps, and I imagine they're the same. They just are stick-on caps like what we have on the original. And they are. A little sticky side there. Okay, I'm going to remove these screws. Wrong one. I know my hand's going to be blocking you, but you don't need to be seeing me unscrew it. And then you can pop these out if you like. They usually stay in there pretty good, so you can leave them. They'll come off with the cover. So now we want to remove this. I use this tool here. That way we don't scratch it up. Pops right off. Button comes right off. Okay, so now let's flip her over, take the gimbal cover off, and we're going to remove the screws up front and two behind the gimbal. And just be careful pressing down. I put my hand under it here, so we're not flexing the legs. Take my tweezers and just grab it. Okay, and now we are going to remove a screw from here and a screw from here. Just want to make sure you don't see it's not there, it's staying in Just want to make sure that if you flip it over and it comes out, that it doesn't go falling anywhere. So that's all the screws underneath. Now we just need to get these two. And you can see these came off. Those were the shoulder joints. And their purpose is so when it's screwed down, it can still pivot. Okay. Now we definitely have shorter cables here. I'm going to undo them from the glued area. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and unplug them. You want to be careful and always grab them by the plug because they're glued down and you don't want to rip the cable from the plug. So far you notice here's a difference. No tape. There is no tape. They put everything down here. That's kind of weird. So they've gone and changed the cover on the Wi-Fi or the lease, and we don't need to have the protective tape anymore. So perhaps the difference between Wi-Fi versus lease, we don't need that. We don't need the protection for the compass. I don't know. But the compass does not have any type of covering on it, as you can see. So it's completely exposed with these electronics. And the only thing they've gone and done is added a protective tape here, which I don't really see a purpose there other than to hold this cover in place. So that's kind of strange to me. On all their quads, they cover the, I said compass earlier, the GPS. On all their quads, they cover the GPS module with that protective layer. So for some reason, we don't need the GPS module covered, which is a little bit odd to me. Not saying anything's wrong with it, I just mainly don't understand why they don't. So we're going to go ahead and remove this, but we first have to remove that. There's your barometer. And I didn't point out, but that's your compass. So this is your geomagnetic compass. This is your GPS right here, and that's your barometer / gyro. So we take that loose, and then we're going to have to be careful because normally what I do is I lift this, and then I pop this off. But now we have this tape here, so we're going to have to be careful and take this to the side. You want to be extremely careful with this cable here. So let's pop that loose, bring it this way, and both covers come off together with that tape. So that's the way I'm going to leave it. And you want to be careful. Don't touch those pink pads. Those are heat sinks. And I just touched the one. And one thing I do is I keep extra. I have some thin stuff and then I have thicker. So this is actually, it's called thermal conductivity sheets, and they're kind of a rubber texture. You want to wear rubber gloves, cut them, wear rubber gloves, and put them in place where they belong. You don't want to touch them with your fingertips. The oils get into your finger, from your fingers get into them. And that's something I didn't know until a viewer actually pointed that out to me. But we can see some differences here. Let me just grab a board. And in comparison, here's our Wi-Fi on the original Zino. And on the Pro, this is your, most likely our lease transmission right there. There's no wires or anything connected to it that run to antennas. So things are looking a little different, especially up here. Got to be real careful because I have not had this apart before. And we just want to make sure that we're not going to hurt anything. So we still have our motor and our camera cables. This is your motor, this is your camera, and then there's a connection right here of some sort of a thread tape. That's where I want to be extra careful. I see that they've got a screw here and here with a plate to hold that in place. So I'm going to go ahead and undo the board by undoing the 4 screws, and then I'm going to lift it carefully. But before then, let's put this back in place. All right, so if we're going to lift this board, so far I see that we have to undo these 2 cables and of course the power cable. So just want to get your nail under there. You've got tape around it, but I mean glue around it, but usually comes off fairly easy. So there, that's undone. And then I'm going to take these protective pads off if they come off easily here, because I'm not sure if they've changed the plugs on the Wi-Fi. Just can't tell. There is definitely something different going on here. I'm not worried about damaging the covers, but they've definitely made it harder to get at because it doesn't want to come off. There we go, and it unplugs as soon as I pull on it, so there we go. So that protective backing is really glued well to the plugs. There you can see the plug. So that's the same. Nothing's changed there except for adding that rubber. So now I know that, I can just get my fingernail under it and undo the plug. And that one's undone. And again, I'm going to be blocking the camera a lot here. Okay. So that one's undone, and let's just kind of fold them back a little bit. Okay. Get you a look there. I'm thinking this is going to be a plug for the fan, because underneath here is where the fan exhausts. So it seems to me that that's going to be a power supply for the fan. So when I unscrew these 4 screws, I'm probably not going to be able to take it out until I undo that. So let's just try it and see what we get. And I have to tell you guys, I've read up as much as I can. There's not a whole lot that I can find on the lease transmission versus Wi-Fi. So, what I was expecting to see is still to see some antennas hooked up there. And I'm not seeing anything hooked up here, so there might be something under the board for that. So this whole setup is still new to me. And if I feel any resistance, I'm going to stop. So far I don't, now I do. So right here I feel some resistance. Let's take a little peek under here and see what we got. I mean, I know I'm going to have this cable in the back, but I'm feeling this one in the front as well. So let's unscrew that. Be careful of those cables there. We're going to unscrew this plate so we can get this other cable that's holding us up and undo that. And what I'm hoping to do is just flip the board back. If not, I'll have to take this cover off and unplug that cable. And let's take this off. So it's just your typical snap-on type cable. So now hopefully we can just lift it and slide that through. And we can. There we go. Wow, they beefed up the wires. That's nice to see. I'm going to go ahead and unplug this. I want to take this whole board out. I like what I'm seeing here. So I need to take this cover off. This cover snaps in place on the Zino, and it snaps in place on this one too. It just snaps in a track. So you can't really fight that one. It's not hard to get off. So we're going to undo this cable here. Now I can take the whole board out. Now, I'm not seeing, all I'm seeing is this placed to hold the pieces together. It's not, it doesn't look like it's any type of protection. So all that's doing is holding these pieces together, because this type of cover right here is, yeah, it's kind of loose. It doesn't snap in like real hard like some of the other ones. I can actually pry it away a lot easier. So I think this is just a protective piece of tape to hold them all together, not any type of signal interference or anything like that. But again, I'm not seeing any type of antenna system with this lease. I would have thought there was some sort of antenna. So let's look at the two boards together here. Again, here's your Wi-Fi, here's your lease. And there's not a whole, there's a lot of things that are pretty identical. We do have something new here. And it's labeled BPS MPU right here. We also have it here, but they didn't solder the plug to it. It's just the print on the board, the etching on the board. So there's an actual plug here for it here. So whatever that is, it's going to be something new in the future maybe. That new plug that I found that plugs in right here, the CVBS, it's not on this new board. So no, this is, I'm sorry, the CVBS would be right here on the, here we go. I think I have one. Nope, this board doesn't have it either. If you recall, one of my other Zinos had a board right here for the CVBS plug, and it was attached right here. The new board does not have this, the new board for the Pro. So I don't know why they ever put that on, what that was for. So looking at this, just to go over it, right here we have our servo motors for the gimbal, and then here you have your camera flex cable, and then here is the power plug-in for the fan, and then this is your lease transmission system here, which I still have some learning to do on that. And then this all right here is your input power, where it controls your power switch, your power from the battery into the main power board, which is down here. That main power board feeds each light, motor, and everything. So let's go further down underneath here and take a look. And I'm seeing the 4 motors, the 4 wires to the motors and LEDs here. So looking at this, they have definitely beefed up these wires. These wires are much thicker. a nicer gauge wire. That's nice to see. This board looks pretty identical. I just replaced 2 of these this week on the regular Zino, and this board looks exactly the same for the most part. And then when we get over here, that's where we have the fan, and all our wires are tucked down there. So you have the fan, and you have a control board, which is going to be, I can see the coil. This is going to be like a thermostat as well. So when it's sitting there on my desk and it overheats, when it's just running on my desk and not outside or in the air, it starts a series of beeps, and that's where this is coming from. This has got a thermostat in it, and it controls the fan. The fan is always on, but it also detects when it's too hot, and an alarm goes off. So many of you might not have noticed that alarm yet, but if you have it sitting inside and just have it powered on and sitting, eventually you'll hear a series of beeps, and that's what this is doing right here. And then underneath here, it's going to be the same. The cables run down to the gimbal, and you just want to be careful pulling these off, but you can see the wires run down to the gimbal and camera. They have gone and kept the clear gimbal dampeners, just like they did with the 3rd series camera. That's when these came out on the original Zino, with the 3rd series camera, which I think is the exact same camera we have here. So there is really absolutely no difference in here appearance wise, except they've given us a higher gauge cable or wire running to the motors and ESCs. And to my surprise, there is no type of antenna system. I thought there was some sort of antenna system on this, but there's not. There's 4 motors going to every leg that I can see, and no sort of antenna setup. So I would have thought that there was some sort of antenna setup for the transmission, but where did it go? Is it this board? This appears to be where the signal comes from, and it does not require any type of antenna. Now, if you go and Google the lease 1.0, or now that we have the lease 2.0 on the Zino 2, if you go and Google that, there's really not a whole lot of information out there, and I've Googled so many different versions of keywords for that, where it doesn't really give you a whole lot of information to where I can really fully understand exactly how it works and transmits. So now I'm a little bit more baffled than I was before, because I really did expect to see some antennas. So barometer has not changed at all. So it's really, you know, we're not looking at anything crazy high tech. We do have the processor, the image processor chips upgraded. Let's see if we can take a peek of those. As I get further into this and I start working on them, I'll write down everything I see on these boards and or on these chipsets, and take all the heat sinks off of them, and see if I can get some better identification as to what each individual one is. I'm not one that needs to know what every single thing in here does. When something's dead or burnt out, I can usually test the test leads and compare it with one that is working, write down my notes, and then I know what voltages to look for and what behavior to look for. So I can usually easily pinpoint when there's a bad board, or if it goes further down into the power board, which this is actually more common to burn out than the main board. In the beginning, whenever I started working on these, I thought, you know, it's the main board. I'd replace the main board, have the same problems, and it turns out to be the power board, the power supply board right here. So the main board in these has been pretty good, except for on the original Zino, some of the Wi-Fi modules burning out, and I think that's due to heat. But I have worked on more of these power boards than I have the main boards. So that's the inside of this, you guys. I'll bring this up closer, and then we'll pop the ESC cover off. Give you a good look here. There's your power board. You can see the heavier gauge wire. And then in here's where your fan is, the thermostat, and the gimbal and camera cables are exactly the same. And let's grab the other Zino. I'll show you one without the main board in it, but just to give you an idea of what you got here. And if you want to rewind and go back and kind of look at things, you can. Okay. Then I'll grab another one where you can just see a difference of the wires. You can see these are your antennas, but you can see these wires here are so much thinner and cheaper, and you can literally put your fingernail into them and strip that rubber right off. That's how cheap they are. So in comparison, take a good look at this, and then go back to this. Oop, get in here, where are you? There we are. Okay, that's that, that's that. So that's it. I'll hold this board back up in comparison to another one. Grab this one over here. Give you a look here of these. Give you a good close look, let you study it. And then I'll give you a good close-up of just the new board on the Zino Pro. But it's not a whole lot different, really. I mean, it's more room for the processing chip, or the image chip, I'm sorry. A lot more going on there in the old one than here. So it looks like, you know, this upgrade requires a lot less on the board compared to the old style, because they've got room for this cutout to plug in the fan. I'll get up here close and let you look at it real good. Hopefully you can see all that. We'll get even closer and scan through it and let you take a good look. And you can probably read these chips better on camera. So I'll kind of angle it and change it in case you can pick up a spot where it's more legible. Looks like maybe right there you can read it. Sorry guys, I can't see the camera, so I can't tell you. I can only kind of see where the image is. And then we'll go back to the power end here and your lease area. And we'll turn it, see if you can get anything off of those chipsets. All right. And that's it. So there's really not much more to go over except for the ESCs. This camera and everything seems to be the same. We have the access in the back there. Still have that cover on it. It looks like that's the 3rd generation camera, just like the original Zino. So I'm going to take off one of the back feet, or back lamp shades here. We'll take this one off. And what you want to do is just get under the red or the rubber pad here and just fold one side of it up. You don't need to remove it. I just fold it up like that and hold it there, and then get a screwdriver. My screwdriver is losing its magnetism. And put that back. Now these snap in pretty tight. So again, I'm going to take this, and you want to try to get under there. And let's get another ESC and compare to this one. This is the original Zino ESC. That's the LED side. So we're going to be looking at the LED side now on the Pro. So there it is. And then here's the one on the original. Let's open up that ESC and see how the wires are underneath it. I find this very interesting whenever there's a change to the same type of model to see. And, you know, I hope for things like upgraded hardware, and they definitely have done that here so far. It's a different ESC. I've replaced a lot of ESCs and helped people replace a lot of ESCs. They do burn out. So maybe Hubsan has recognized this and beefed it up a little bit. Let me get these wires out of your way. Okay, so these are your motor wires right here. The red, the yellow, and black, same as normal. The motor appears to be exactly the same from all I can tell. And then what you have is two heavy gauged wires and then two lighter gauged wires. So I imagine the lighter ones are your LEDs, and then the heavier ones are a power supply. That's what it appears to be. And then this is the motors here. So definitely a change there. So we're gonna call that an upgrade. Hopefully we'll find out in the long run that turns out to be an upgrade, that we're not burning out ESCs. The motors, as far as I can tell, are the same. We have upgraded to a higher gauge cable or wire. Your power board is still the same. Your power supply board is still the same. And then back to the new board, obviously the upgrades there are the lease transmission, and then your Umbrella chipset. Everything up here is the same, and then we just have the difference here where they've gone and changed the board layout and have our power supply for the fan. So we've got the upgraded fan. We have a thermal unit that tells us when it's too hot. And they've added venting to the quad. Not only does it exhaust out here, but they put vents in the front. In the front there, so that air comes in where the fan is and kind of circulates in there and exhausts out. So it flows on in and probably circulates and then comes out. And then they've got the two holes here in the back, which I think the original Zino had, but when you put the battery in, that's covered up because it's part of the locking mechanism. They're more like guides actually. So no other venting that I can see, but again, I don't think we need it because we have the fan. So that's it. There's really not a whole lot to show. That's the inside of the new Zino Pro. And I imagine the Zino 2 is going to be a whole lot different. Just based on them adding the optic flow sensors and the TOF sensors. We'll have an exhaust fan in there, at least 2.0. Probably won't see much of a difference there. It's going to be faster, twice the speed, so I imagine the ESCs are upgraded even more on that model. So Zino 2 should be a good bit different. But I am still surprised that our GPS module doesn't require any type of protective cover. And I don't think that's because of the difference between Wi-Fi and lease, because even on the original 501 models, the 501S, the 501M, the 501SS, the 501A, those are Wi-Fi and RC quads, regular RC quads. All of them have that protective film over the Wi-Fi. So we don't have it at all on this Zino Pro for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. So that's it. Now I got to put it all back together. Fortunately, this is not my flyer. This is always going to be the bench dummy, so I'll put it back together for the most part, and I never fully put it back together just in case I have to do a video. But just before anybody asks, I am not going to be taking the legs off or doing anything like that with this quad. There's no reason for me to go that far on this quad. I can show you one. That's this one here. I just put a leg on, and tell you that all you need to do is, this cap does not come off. Some people make the mistake of trying to pull that cap. Do not pull that cap. You're going to remove 2 screws, one here and one down here. And you're going to remove the 3 screws on this ring, pop it off, and then slide your leg down, and it comes right out. It's very simple to replace these legs. And basically the same thing with these. You're going to take the plate off here, undo some screws inside, and then you can lift that leg right off. So I will do some sort of video on that another point maybe, but once you've gotten this far, if you can get this far, it's easy to take these legs off. So that's it. You have the Zino with the Zino Pro, and I've got it backwards. Trying to be careful with that cable. But there you have it. Not real exciting for some of you, but those of you who are interested in the electronics, and those of you who are even more interested than I am as to exactly what every piece does, hopefully I gave you a good look at that. And I am sorry it took me so long to do this video. I know a lot of people kept asking me to hurry up, take it apart, do a comparison. And I think we were all expecting to see a little bit more, but there is definitely an upgrade here. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching the video, and click that thumbs up on your way out, please. And we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.